Dijeron igualdad, pero esta vez me separaron. Dijeron mucho, pero no se olvidaron de callarse. Cuánto odio por mi piel sembraron. Dijeron historia y la tergiversaron. Dijeron guerra, muerte, odio y nos culparon. Siempre. Enfermedades, epidemias nos contagiaron. Exterminación de mi fauna complace a tus mercados. Dijeron riqueza y todo se lo robaron. Oro, platino, diamante, a la fuerza se lo llevaron. Y la actualidad es tan triste que todo aquello que dijeron es lo mismo que hoy se dice más. ¿Quién dice, quién explota, quién se beneficia? El asesino, el mismo que da las noticias. Hay una cuenta fácil que siempre me da las grandes riquezas, de dónde vienen y hasta dónde van.
Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao. Nati Dre es afroresistencia, cultura ancestral, afrodescendencia, solidaridad. Esa es la esencia, la diáspora africana eleva la conciencia, conciencia negra, universal, progresista y transcultural. Negros y mestizos revolucionando, pueblos caribeños y africanos en un solo bando. No más explotación, colonialismo interno, no más confusión, supremacía blanca en el Babilón. Soy rojo, negro y verde, afroliberación. Mientras más negro, más represión. Somos creadores, recupera tu visión. Mi misión es educar con amor, contra el silencio, vivo sin temor. Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao.
Uhuru.
I'm on mute.
I was on mute too.
Rise up, man.
Sun,
man, rising with the sun right now. You know.
Mm-hmm.
What's good? How y'all doing? Welcome to the Rise Up International Morning Show.
I am Natasha, and we have Akimba, Ojere, Ferdinand Cardenas, and Isaac Jackson.
There you go. And don't mind us, man. This is a long time since it's been four of us, you know, all together. Know, so we kind of out of whack right now, but we here.
Brand new.
You know,
we're here.
I
think
and then there was three.
Natasha out.
Hey, but happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, how you guys doing? How's everything?
Hey,
feeling
man,
amazing, man.
Feeling good. It's Kwanzaa, man. I'm happy for Kwanzaa, man.
Kuji Chakulia, right?
Yeah, Kuji Chakulia today.
Kuji Chakulia. That's what it's about. Self-determination, man.
We try to keep the African love floating out here.
That's right. That's what Rise Up Morning Show is about, right?
No doubt.
Chakulia.
Yep. Self-determination.
Talk about that, man. Let's do this, man. How do you see Kuji Chakulia?
All right, let's have a little conversation, a little Kwanzaa conversation. I mean, I think how when people talk about Kuji Chakulia in particular, thinking about that the phrase, the right to name ourselves and determine for ourselves, like those are the things that I think about when I think about Kuji Chakulia, because I think it's really important for people to, not just people, but we're talking about particularly here as African people, the right for us to like be able to decide for ourselves every single thing. And so like for us to decide what our names are, for us to decide, what we call ourselves, when, we were even, offline having conversation about calling ourselves African and, people calling themselves African as opposed to calling themselves African American. People, African people being able to decide for themselves how they want to run things, having our own institutions, having our own media. And obviously we know we're on a media station that's not owned by us, but we know that this particular channel is created by us for us, right? And it's just a stepping stone And it's just a smaller part of a larger aim to really create media that is, for us, by us, in the spirit of, self-determination and seeing ourselves as a people who have the power to do for ourselves and make the decisions and not have anybody else, tell us what we have to think or do or say or be.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. I unite with that. I think we have to decolonize everything. We have to decolonize everything. We have to reappropriate everything that we do. We have to re-Africanize ourselves, our culture, everything that we do, the way we move. That's why I think, culture is so important, because culture is how we do things, how we see ourselves in regards to everything else, to the world. You know what I'm saying? How we see ourselves in society, within society, and how we move, how we eat, what we eat, how we dress, everything. Our name, like you said, everything. But so yeah, once again, I think that's the same thing. The work, this type of work that we do here at Black Power Media is key, because we need that. We need it.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I think like Kwanzaa itself was birthed out of that movement for self-determination, right? When we look at with some of the great leaders, particularly Malcolm X, who many call, look to the ideological father of the Black Power movement. He would talk about it all the time, Black nationalism, being self-determined, community control of our schools, our economy. So, he was always promoting the philosophy of self-determination. And when we look at Kwanzaa, the founders, you have somebody like Mulana Karenga, but also Hakeem Jamal, I think, who was the cousin of Malcolm X. And, it's him and Mulana Karenga who is going to found the organization US, and, the US organization. I like to give credit to the organization, even though, Karenga is sort of like the ideological, I guess, leader of that movement at the time. But it was a collective that had to celebrate, put on and celebrate that first Kwanzaa as well. So, those people who did that, they were expressing the idea of self-determination through their actions, saying that, this is something, for us, by us. Someone just said that, right? Yeah. And creating that also as, though we talked about this before, it wasn't necessarily, Karenga didn't say it was an alternative, but it gave Black people an option outside of these holidays that were created necessarily by us. So, it's important, man.
And it's a lot of, before I let you go, Isaac, it's just a lot of things that sometimes we don't even realize that we're not determining for ourselves. We kind of think sometimes we're making our own choices, you know what I'm saying? But we're really not. We've really been programmed to so much, to basically everything that goes on within society. So again, culture and ideology, we got to get, we got to get that straight.
Yeah, no, I agree with everybody on screen right now. First off, I want to say it's glad to be back. Glad to be on screen again with you guys.
Glad to have you back.
Yeah.
This your first day back since you went on
like on
the
screen
little break?
Yeah, like on screen wise, and whatnot. Okay. And to clarify for the viewers, went through some personal things. You can go to my own personal pages to see that. So that won't be talked about right now. But in regards to self-determination, something that's very key to our resistance against this imperialist system is for us to self-determine whether we want to be conspirators in this system or we want to be against this system. And so these are decisions that whether they're, they have negative and positive polarities when it comes to it. And so being able to self-identify, being able to say, hey, I'm not going to attach myself in the same, I'm going to go the same route that a Muhammad Ali did and say, that I'm taking a principle stance, saying I don't want to be classified under a slave name. That this name represents chattel slavery, it represents ownership, it represents bondage, and I don't want that. There's many forms of self-determination. We can see it from a sexual level, we can see it from an ideological level. But in the context of this day in particular, I think for the African resistance, it's very key for us to make this a very important day, because we have so many individuals out here that false self-determinize. So they'll classify themselves as an American when really they're African, or they'll falsify that false national consciousness that Chairman O'Malley talks about is very prevalent, even in the modes of the self-determination. So it's a very important day. It's an important day for learning, very important day for education. And so I'm glad that I was able to return back and give a little bit of self-determination.
Yeah.
Kuji Chagulia.
Kuji Chakulia, man. We here. That was a good build. That's a good way to start off.
A good build, man. Good.
Yeah.
This thing, man. The Kwanzaa spirit right there.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And that's
RBG.
a reminder we talked about, not just talking about the principles during Kwanzaa, but talking about them year round.
Go.
In another 3 months, we build again.
That's key. That's key right there. We gotta live it. We gotta live it.
All of it.
That's what culture is about, man. Culture is about living it. We gotta live it. It's not just one day, 1 week. It's all the time.
You have to identify as it as well too. I think and this ties into, and I think this, if I'm not mistaken, the Malcolm X video that we're getting ready to play for a break for Black Power, that's getting ready, it's processing right now in the studio, talks about this identifying as Africans on a global and on a domestic level. That we got so many individuals right now that call themselves, well, I'm a foundational Black American, I'm a ADOS, I'm all of these things. Like, wow. And I don't care.
We're gonna get into that.
The break gave me a lot of strength. This break gave me a lot of resilience. It gave me a lot of defense against imperialist entities. And so, I have a lot of smoke for foundational Black Americans and for ADOS.
Oh, they gonna get you like Fat Joe, bro.
Nah. I put myself in a position to understand how they historically got to where they're at. Natasha, you was frozen for a minute. I thought you were still laughing. Listen. I was like,
what's amazing to me with these groups. I don't even know what they are. Maybe internet crew, hashtag. I don't know what they are. But what's amazing to me is how some elders, from specifically from hip hop,
that part
that I've been respecting for years, are actually falling into that shit. I'm gonna mention names. Yeah, Lord Jamar, Brand Nubian.
My problem with it is that I love that you highlighted that, because there's so many artists that are out there that talk about in a form that is in an erasure. For those that don't know, I fall on both. There's two fronts that I fight in this battle. It's an African diaspora and it's the native indigenous population of Turtle Island that I fight with, and that I stand in resistance with as well. I cannot pick either side. I cannot straddle the fence. I have to be on both sides, and it's a very hard fucking task to follow. It's a very hard task to do. When I hear certain people from the African diaspora fall for imperialist traps, narratives, and aesthetics, mindsets, meaning that you will fall for a eugenics talking point by stating that you weren't brung here on a boat, that you were already here, and manipulating history so much so that it gets you to really believe these weird TikTok rabbit hole like videos of these dudes saying that Africa is the Grand Canyon, all these crazy.
You're doing the enemy's work. You're doing the enemy's work.
Exactly, but what you're also doing too is you're creating this false narrative that justifies the exploitation of our African brothers and sisters abroad and what they go through. So, there's a book by George Patmore that I would really love people to read called Africa and World Peace. And it'll get you to understand how neocolonialism works. It'll get you to understand how this system works. If you don't know who George Patmore is, George Patmore was someone who was, again, willingly and ably bodied to packing up fucking Nazis for the Russians and was so cool with it. You know? So, you know, I follow in the steps of individuals like such that understood the assignment and continue even after even in the afterlife, continue to help individuals like me learn this. And so, you know, that's my smoke with those individuals, because they erase my indigenous heritage. And at the same time, they erase their own people's heritage and what they went through. And they try and again, erase that there was chattel slavery, and that we all that are on screen right now were fucking affected by that. Everybody that's in this chat box right here was affected by it, is affected by it. And we got people out there that are trying to stop our resistance and our knowledge and our self-determination. Again, this is a day it's very important. Again, I'm gonna pipe down. I'm gonna land this 747 and pass it over to someone else.
But they don't all deny chattel slavery. Some groups just say that basically, you know, that's their foundation, you know, which is a whole nother problem. But it's just as big of a problem. They're like, that's our foundation, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like we were slaves here in America, and so now we built this shit. So now this, you know, we want the big piece of the cake, because, you know, we made this great country, basically. You know, we made this great country.
Which is a buying into the neo-colonial aesthetic, you know, of some so-called liberation. You know, I'm sorry, but I have a friend by the name of Pen in the Paper. You guys can follow her on Twitter. She does revolutionary political prisoner work as well. She's like more or less, she's like a sister to me. And she said this, I didn't coin this, this is her coin, is that, you know, reparations under a capitalist mode is nothing more than a stimulus check. We are not fighting for stimulus checks. We are fighting for liberation. We're fighting for self-determination. We are fighting against an imperial mode, and to not operate under that imperial mode. We got people right now that are saying, hey, we can liberate ourselves if we just mildly work within the system. No, we can't.
No,
and you're not going to tell me that we've
been mildly working in the system.
Right.
That part.
I mean, hundreds of years will show you that. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of more years you need, and how much more of our future generations you willing to sacrifice just some nonsense, you know, saying stuff like that. That's ridiculous. And we do know that, like, part of these groups, it is a money grab, right? When they think like, oh, you know, there's a possibility that, you know, there can be reparations. Then all of a sudden, you know, you started to have this, when you started to hear the talk more, I guess in the mainstream, then you started to see these groups pop up around the same time. So it's no coincidence, especially knowing how far back the fight for reparations goes and how long that Black people have been fighting for reparations. Real organizations like in Cobra and others that have been fighting for reparations, the lineage of our people who've been fighting for reparations since enslavement, right? I'm forgetting the sister's name who brought a lawsuit against the United States for as a, like, the beginning. That's kind of like those who have been
Belina, you're talking about way back, Belina Royal. Well, she did not against the United States. You talking about recently, or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about during enslavement, and I'm forgetting her name.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, I know there was Belinda Royal. I mean,
it could be
considered like the first person who.
It could be Belinda Royal. And you know,
against her slave master, actually, against her former slave master, she sued her slave master. State ruled in favor of her. But
yeah, and so, like, you know, when you know that history and you know that lineage and you know that the seriousness of it, and that reparations was also in people doing that, people who've been serious about doing it have not been doing it on just a national level within the United States, but it's been an international movement. That is an international movement, that this is something that it cuts across the diaspora when we're talking about international African solidarity. And so for you to just come out of nowhere at a time when it's becoming, you know, popular in the mainstream, you know, when these groups started coming up, you see the opportunism. You know, it's not a coincidence that all of a sudden you talking this and then you talking some real crazy stuff. Somebody actually who I was talking to recently, a friend of mine, he said, because we were talking about you know, these organizations, and you know, how much are the people in real life versus online, right? You know, like, is this something that only exists mostly online or whatever? And they're like, well, no, I know somebody who he said, like, I don't know if he said he knows or he heard, I can't remember the specifics, but he was just like, yeah, no, somebody actually in real life divorced their wife off this stuff. Like, that's
Dang.
Oh,
they had kids. That's crazy.
yeah, these people wild, man.
Yeah.
My cousin, you know, he FBA
Dang.
guy, man. Like his childhood friend, got him sending him videos, so he watched.
That's your cousin that I know.
Yeah, not his brother. You probably met his brother.
His
But
brother
Five
who-
Spot,
Yeah.
the owner, the brother, yeah.
It's like
So,
a plague, man.
Right, exactly. No,
say that
don't-
again. Say his name.
No, I said it's like a plague.
Oh, all right. Yeah,
Like people
Nah,
getting
definitely.
sick.
bruh. And then he's trying to, you know, but that's a whole nother. But anyway, you know, to y'all points though, we have to make it clear to our people, because now it's a battle of ideas, and you know, these people at the end of the day, and I'm not saying all of them, because everybody that's a part of that that group are probably joining for different reasons. But there are people who are a part of that and are probably like leading up the organization. They have bourgeois aspirations at the end of the day. Bourgeois aspirations. They want to be a part of this American system. They want to get the resources. They want to get the jobs. They're looking at people coming and competing with the jobs that they should be getting and the resources that they should be getting by the colonizer, from these colonizers at the end of the day. So, you know, it's bourgeois aspirations, and we had to be, you know, clear on that. And it's the history of education. Like we were talking about Joe the other day, that conversation came up, and he said something directed to the group, not Africans in America, you know, also known as African Americans or Black Americans, not the ethnic group, the organization, the group that tries to pull us all in and say that we are part of it, right? So he attacked that group, but now they're trying to make it that he was attacking Black Americans or African Americans. No, he was attacking y'all and y'all leader. And when it comes to, you know, the Puerto Rican population, you know, to even try to create a divide between, you know, Blacks and Puerto Ricans, man, like that's some white supremacy, you know, white supremacy move, action right there. When you look at the history, again, it's important that we do the knowledge and we understand the history of Blacks and Puerto Ricans. Puerto Ricans were colonized by this country that enslaved and colonized Africans right here, right? And they are still colonized over there. And they had an independence movement. They still have an independence movement, right, to free themselves from colonialism. And you had Afro-Puerto Ricans coming to the Americas, and you had in the military Afro-Puerto Ricans who were segregated. And where did they put them? Right there with the Negroes, with the niggas. They was treating them like niggas. That Fat Joe that people were up in arms to, Fat Joe used niggas, like what? They were being treated just like us, like niggas, man. So, you know, like there was any separation, of course, there's always going, because there's cultural things. Like we get into these spats and divisions with each other because we all colonize, right? So we need an enemy, and the closest, and we going to attack the most vulnerable, right? So it's going to be the Haitians that come, the Puerto Ricans that come, the Venezuelans or whoever, you know what I'm saying? Like we need somebody to, we've been getting our asses kicked, you know, as far as, you know, Africans here in America for so long, you know, and we ain't been able to do, we haven't been directing that energy to the right, kicking the right person's ass, you know what I'm saying? So we take it out on each other, not even just people who are coming, but we take it out on each other. And so those are contradictions we had to deal with. You know, when Dr. Amos Wilson wrote Black on Black violence in service of white domination, you know what I'm saying? Like He wasn't talking about what other people were doing to us. He was talking about what we're doing to each other. And that's the conversation nobody's having. So, you know, you pointing at Fat Joe and all of this energy on Fat Joe. Last day I said, you know, all this energy you taking out on Fat Joe. Why don't you take that same energy and go viral about the police officer that they just released, right, in Missouri for killing a black man, right? They gave him a pardon. While you talking about Fat Joe, you know, they pardoning people. They talking about the police officer that murdered Sonia Massey, releasing him out on bail. You know, that's where the energy should be directed, not these distractions. And so what they doing is distracting the masses of African people and telling us that this is the problem. Fat Joe's the problem. Instead, if they were real leaders, they'll be organizing us against, you know, the real enemy, the people who are letting these killer cops off and whoever else, man. We can go on and on.
Yeah, and what's crazy is you bring up a point too, that, and I'm gonna add something else that should be of importance. Why is it that the white woman that ran through a kindergarten and preschool, injuring 4 1-year-olds and killing their teacher, gets no charges for running through a kindergarten school? If that was someone from our diaspora right now, they'd be all over the news. They'd be all over the news right now. They'd be like, "Yeah, hit the guillotine. We need a guillotine for this one." With, you know, like forget, you know, death by incarceration. You know,
collective rage.
You know, but that's the game of America. Is to pit us all against each other so that the finger doesn't get pointed at the right person. Mm-hmm. You know, the way I see it is that this will continue. Because we live in a fratricidal society, you know, that literally it fiends for shit like this. It fiends for drama. It fiends for you know, I mean, look at the shit that's going on right now. You got all these videos of people talking about this unexplained aircrafts and whatnot and UFOs and everything, but yet you could take the time to believe those videos, but you can't take the time to believe that there has been millions of dollars of contracts that have been signed in the last 2 to 3 years with not just Elon Musk, but Elon Musk's brother, who owns a drone company. And so you saying that you seeing things fly into the ocean and whatnot, they're flying back into submarines, they're flying back into destroyers, they're flying back again. The earth is curved, y'all. It's not flat. Okay. So I'm hitting all points right now. Flat earthers, all of that shit. You know, if you could believe this every single time, again, I'm gonna point something out that I've actually been keeping to myself as of late, is that why is it that every single time we get even a smidge of some type of class solidarity on a mass level here in the West, they always want to throw, well, you know, that there's aliens and they don't come from space, they come from the water, you know, anything to try and distract us from the fact that, for one, this government system is trash. It always was trash and it always will be trash. It works for the 1% and it depletes the survival and the existence of the 99. So again, I'm just piggybacking off of what Ikemba said, is that we are worried about way too many things that are just beyond the amount beyond an amount of logic. You know, I don't give a shit if Beyonce is irritated that the Netflix Christmas Super Day or Christmas Super Day show or whatever the fuck they called it, you know, was buffering. I don't care about that. I care at the fact that we got Congolese people right now that are being subjugated to mining so that we could have these laptops, we could have these fucking microphones. Excuse my French, Natasha. I know Natasha's eyeing me like, hey, you gonna get us? I'm trying to stop the demonetization.
Natasha, the FCC,
and we
Natasha, the FCC.
No, I'm about, you know, all the ages, an intergenerational show.
There we go. Yeah. There was a new thing. I'm gonna let you finish.
To conclude, comrade, okay, I personally have a problem with the fact that we are just manipulated so much so that we believe that these things are serious things that we need to care about. Where you got thousands of people that'll go on live on TikTok and complain about the buffering of Netflix, but will not complain that there is an extermination going on in Palestine, that there is a Holocaust going on in the Congo. that there was another Holocaust that happened in the Congo for which that got Belgium out of bankruptcy. Okay, where they killed 15. No one cares about that. They don't care about the occupation that we live under here. So again, we have missed the mark, and in this case, we don't know where the fuck the mark is. That's the last F word I'm gonna drop, Natasha. I promise.
Hey, man, come on.
That's how we come. Fuji Chakulia.
Rise up is for the children, yo.
As Vital Hoops, little man from Vital Hoops would say, Vital Hoops is for the culture.
Culture, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
But
no,
hey, we come with the energy.
I unite with definitely what you and Akimba are talking about in terms of like the way
Minus the cuss words.
Yes, minus and if you talk to any student who's ever like had me as a teacher, they know there's no cursing in the class. It's not happening. I'm on it. I don't care if you do it at home. I don't care, whatever. But I don't even listen to music with cuss words.
Oh yeah,
because
so you missing out on Tupac,
man. You can't listen to Pac when he comes.
You missing out on Tupac then.
No, I would say I'm not gonna act like I've never listened to music with curse words. I used to listen to music with curse words before I knew better. It's when you know better, you do better. So before I used to listen to music with curse words, yeah, that's right. I'm saying it, and I'll say it.
Natasha,
when you know better, you do better. And
crazy.
So
you wilding right now.
With curse words and with the N word, but I stopped because I don't use the N word either. But it's like if you say that language is sacred, if you really believe that, so then what does that mean for the words that you choose and how you choose to say it? And even Malcolm X said that. What did he say? People who use curse words, they're just lazy, they unintelligent or something like that, or lazy and unintelligent, whatever it is.
You don't do that. You don't do that. You can't bring up Malcolm. Now I got push back because Malcolm, you did it. You brought Malcolm up.
I'm pushing back.
Malcolm said,
telling me that Lil Red didn't have.
But no. But even in his last speech, which we got an event in February up on that. But Malcolm said, if a man speaks, you can't speak to him in German. You got to find out the language that person speaks. So if I'm in the hood, and I'm communicating with people in the hood, I have to speak the language to get them to understand, where I'm coming from. I may not be using a whole lot of profanity, but maybe using some slang.
I mean, like, listen, if you're in the hood and that's what, all
right.
And in particular too. But if you're that particular kind of person, like for me, I'm not going to go in the hood and be like, and just start using a bunch of curse words. It's not going to happen. And but if they're using a bunch of curse words and I'm in their space, in a particular kind of way, then we can have the discussion. Might I say something about curse words? I might, yeah. But I'm not going to be like, oh, what are you guys doing cursing? No, like, obviously you have to understand the different spaces and times and how things operate. People will use curse words sometimes. I understand that. It's no big deal.
Yeah. The D word, might get somebody attention, and they might look. That might, you may grab that person's attention and have them locked in. By using certain words.
It's more. I mean, obviously, my position is nuanced, but in general, yes, it's a no for the. Because especially when you're trying to do an intergenerational show, you want the kids. You got to be thinking about the youth. That's always got to be number one on your mind. So, but no, I definitely agree with the fact that and I think we were talking about it on another show, just like the way in which we know that attention is currency in our time today, and that they will have us have our attention on everything else but what we need to have our attention on. Like they'll have us doing everything but reading, people make the jokes about, hiding things in books and all that other stuff, but they are literally guiding and taking our attention to any place that they want it to be beside, the places that and that's why Coogee Chocolate is important, right? That's why new media like what we do is important, because, we have to be that drop in the bucket, if anything, right, to push against all of that trying to get us to think about everything else that does not matter. And I didn't even know that thing about people complaining online about something buffering on Netflix. That's ridiculous. Like, really? That's
Oh,
really
man.
my
They-
time I'm talking about.
You know,
Like, come on.
it's a matter of, do you really, or are you really serious enough about your own liberation and what that actually means, not just to you, but everybody that would affect, that is around you. And you know, we're not at a point where we have large groups of people, you know, and I'm you know, there might be some organizations that, you know, might send me some messages talking about, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, then hey, so be it. But you know, I'm not talking to those organizations. I'm not talking to organizations that are actually doing work. I'm talking to individuals that, you know, play and masquerade, perform as an activist online, have hundreds of thousands of followers and shit on TikTok, and decide that they're gonna, in every way possible, think that, you know, a part of the liberation is us, you know, debating on if, you know, Lil Wayne or Kendrick should be playing the Super Bowl, and if that's a part of our culture. That's not a part of our culture. That's American neo-colonial culture that they have co-opted. They have co-opted individuals into believing that it's culture. That's culture. For
But
it's
Kendrick,
like, no.
Kendrick Lamar, you're revolutionary, right? No?
No, Kendrick Lamar is not a revolutionary, in my opinion. Kendrick Lamar is someone who, again, I'll just keep it a buck. Homeboy got tired of Toronto rappers, you know, doing what they was doing.
Natasha shooting shots backstage, man.
No,
I'm just saying.
It's not shooting shots. I was providing context. You know, I wanted to be clear. Because I told you I could have.
A man curses because he doesn't have the words to say what's on his mind. I would actually push back on that now.
I've heard Malcolm curse, man.
You know,
go that February 15th, 6 days before his assassination.
Okay,
man.
was this written before or after his Mecca? Because that makes a whole lot of difference. That'll be the deciding factor on it.
Now I'm about to pull up Malcolm cursing. Now I'm about to.
I think it is time for us to take a quick break for Black Power. We did kind of go real deep into some conversations about identity, you know, about self-determination, and I want to say shout out to Ikemba for getting us these breaks for Black Powers. We finally have 2 new ones in the format that they're supposed to be in, y'all. So, you know, they figuratively put a gun to my head.
And one of my favorite Malcolm joints, yo. So
yeah. So we'll be back after this break for Black Power. Until then, enjoy some words from Malcolm.
Most people, when we say Afro-American, they think only of the Negroes in the United States. But they don't realize that 2/3 of Brazil consists of people of African blood, which means they're also Afro-American because Brazil is in South America. And in all of these, many of these countries in South America and Central America, and even in Canada, they are heavily populated with people whose ancestors came from Africa. So when you total up the number of Afro-Americans, real Afro-Americans, in the Western Hemisphere, there are perhaps 100 million. And if these people ever unite among themselves, not only is it necessary for the Afro-Americans in the United States to be organized, but it's also necessary for the Afro-Americans in the Caribbean, or the Afro-Cubans, the Afro-Brazilians. It's necessary for all of them to be organized. And then once they are organized in each place, we have to organize among ourselves so that the Afro-American in the United States will be working in conjunction in a coordinated program with those who are in Cuba, and those in Brazil, and those in Venezuela, and those throughout the Caribbean, and Haiti, and in the West Indian Islands. And in this way, we actually get strength. And it's not an accident that there's no organization existing in the Western Hemisphere that's designed toward that end. It would be a direct threat to imperialism as it really exists, and to colonialism as it exists in the West. And one of the things that's going to help to bring this about is the independence of Africa. And one of the only reasons in the that we in the West have never organized. We have hated our image and our African image. And because Africa has been in the hands of people who have created an image of Africa that's negative and hateful. And it has been hateful to us. We haven't wanted to identify with it. But now that Africa is getting independent and in a position to create its own image, and it's a positive image, those of us in the West look at the African image and see how positive it is. We begin to identify with it. We become proud of Africa, and we become proud of our African blood, our African heritage. And this is what is beginning to make the Africans in the Western Hemisphere today develop more race pride. And as this race pride develops, then it has a tendency to make us want to unite together and work together. And your Western imperialists and colonialists consider this to be a grave threat. More threat than communism or Marxism or socialism or anything else. The Africanism is what they consider to be the real threat.
That's the mic drop right there.
Hey man, that's
Africanisms is the real threat.
Is the real
Africanism, bro. Hey man,
I know.
teach, Malcolm. Malcolm was teaching, man.
You was gonna say something to Kimba, or you said you're not gonna say it?
Nah, I was gonna say not FBA-isms, not not Ado-isms or whatever, you know. Africanisms, man.
That's 100%.
I know these people, they probably behind closed doors, they probably know like Malcolm not talking that language that Malcolm would be against. But they can't come out against Malcolm because they know how much Malcolm is loved in the black community. It'll make them look real.
Right.
And the thing is, it's not for no reason, right? When we think about like, you know, okay, why Malcolm is loved is because he gave the people, not the bourgeois, but like the average person, you know, the average black person, the language to express exactly what was going on. Like he was speaking to us in explaining what was happening in a way that, you know, was resonant with them, in a way that they were thinking about it. Like, you know, a lot of the times when we think about it, whether it's here in, you know, the United States or in Africa or in the Caribbean or Latin America or whatever, you don't need grand theories and grand words to be able to have a analysis of what your situation is, right? And we already had an analysis of our situation. People were already feeling this way, and he was articulating that, and not just articulating it, but he was also acting, right? He was also doing the actions toward it, so that he was creating organizations. He was part of organizations. He was doing the work to move forward. He was building international coalition. He really understood and was strategizing around it. And so, you know, for an organization who is just organizations who just want to talk and say false things, you can't come at him, because all of his work demolishes even whatever you've done in, you know, the little bit of time that you've been spewing all this nonsense. So of course not. And people, us as a community, I think, especially today, and especially thinking about the way in which the leaders that we've had, or the people within our community that's done a lot of things, we uplift those people because of the important things that they've done for our people as a whole, not for just themselves, not for you being so, you know, individualistic or so money hungry, and you're doing these things for yourselves and you're throwing little pennies out to the rest of us, or if at all, but because you're actually doing things for the whole of us, not just for yourself. And so I think when we think about even who they try to make us uplift today, it's a far cry from those who we would organically lift up without being coerced and our attention made to pay attention to celebrities and these people who have a lot of money. Okay, you have a lot of money, so what? What does that do for us as a community, as a people, toward our liberation? You're not doing that. Even if you're going back to Africa and you have a lot of money, what are you really doing that's really impacting the country and the people in that kind of way that you're creating these types of African national solidarities that Malcolm is talking about here, right? That is really what the threat is.
Yeah, that's it right there. listen, he to get back to Malcolm, and you know, he said Africanism, you know, he's saying like that's the biggest threat. You know what I'm saying? That's what he was talking about. And that's where the whole thing where, you know, where we Pan-Africanists say, you know, Pan-Africanism or perish, when we talk about like, you know, like this, it's literally the only ideology to me that, you know, that's gonna liberate us as African people. We're not gonna be able to do it individually, you know, we're not gonna be able to do it even as a nation. You know what I'm saying? We need pan. We need to be globally. We have to be globally connected, and that's what he spoke about. But you see, to go back to the same thing, to go back to FBA and things, and how FBA tries to utilize Malcolm. There's a reason for that. The same reason a lot of people are wearing. We kind of spoke about this off air, but people wear Malcolm X shirts or tattoos, but they're not with the ideology at all. And it's the same thing with people like, for example, Bob Marley, right? They'll constantly, like, people will be like they use Bob Marley for real nationalist stuff, like Jamaican flags all the time. Yeah, Jamaica, Jamaica. And then you listen to Bob Marley speak and they ask him, are you African or Jamaican? He's like, nah, I'm African. You know what I'm saying? But the people will use him but they'll use him for like, you know, like Jamaican pride or some stuff like that. When Bob was clearly like, nah, listen, I'm an African. Our people came from Africa.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of the same thing. And like, you know, I speak a lot about this. I've been speaking about this for years about African people in Latin America, because there's this whole Latino movement, right? And this whole Afro-Latino movement that came through. And I've been speaking against us, you know, people from so-called Afro-Latinos. I don't use that word, you know what I'm saying? People of African descent from South America using that term, because it just divides us. Like, to me, we just have to be Africans the same
African,
way.
yeah.
You know what I mean? The whole Latino stuff, Latino comes from Latin, and that's you know what I'm saying? That's our enemy. You know what I'm saying? So what are we doing here? So it's time for us to wake up, forget about the whole FBA, ADOS, Latinos, all this bullshit. You know, people, when we are of African descent, we're Africans, and we have to understand that. We have to be able to see our brothers and sisters, no matter what country colonized them, no matter what language they speak, no matter what, you know what I'm saying, as our people. Because Malcolm said it right there. He's like, listen, that's what they're truly afraid of. Why? Because of the numbers. Why? Because of the continent, Africa, where we understand Africa for Africans at home and abroad, that becomes real. When we understand it's an African revolution, you know what I mean? Pan-African solidarity. That's where we.
Yeah, like just to add a little bit on to what you're talking about, Fernando, I think it also it becomes a consciousness too, because what you think you do, all of our actions first stem from our thoughts. And so that, you know, that's why, like Stephen Biko said, the most potent weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And so when you start to call yourself African, that shifts your thought process somewhere else, because now all of a sudden you're connected with a continent. All of a sudden now you have to connect to that history. All of a sudden now you're wondering, what's the culture of Africa? All of a sudden now you're wondering, well, what's Africa's relationship to the United States? What's Africa's relationship to the rest of the world? What's Africa's relationship? If I'm African, how did I get here? You just calling yourself that shifts your mindset to begin with. And they don't want you shifting your mindset, and they don't want you shifting your behavior, because mindsets determine behavior.
And before you know it, you're like, we can't allow this to happen to our brothers and sisters in the Congo. We can't allow this to happen to our people in Sudan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's why it's been so difficult for us to really liberate ourselves, man. We keep on dividing ourselves up, making ourselves vulnerable.
Yeah, that's the propaganda. That's designed, man. Yeah. That's designed that way.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's why, you know, Kwanzaa, how it starts off.
Sure.
Moja, man, unity.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, we don't have to be, under, one, I guess, like being the core, but what they say, like, we don't have to, conform, right? We can have uniformity, right, without having to like conform to the different ideologies, our cultural practices that we may have, but we can still be united when
We don't have to be on the same page, but we have to be in the same book. Shout out to Kalaji.
Yeah, wherever he is.
We quoting Kalanji.
Yeah, that's the comrade Kalaji. He says
quotable. All right, man.
He says
But
that
even like, yeah, so I had brought this up in my diatribe, in my rant, I guess you can, about the police officer, the first white cop convicted in a black man's killing. The governor commutes this pig's sentence. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if FCC gonna come at it. Can we call them pigs? They don't.
I think
yeah,
so.
yeah.
It's a little bit disrespectful for the pigs, but
for the pigs, right? Yeah.
I still use it. It's all right.
But we having the wrong conversations. We energy is directed in the wrong places, and we should be looking at, because this is this police officer sentence being commuted. This is all a part of a systemic problem that we are dealing with as Africans, not just in America but in the world. But former detective Eric Dave Valcanara, what is that? Like, what, man? I can't even say. What the hell is this name, man? That's some Germans?
Yeah, that's gotta be.
Might be a German last name.
The Valcanari. Yeah,
that's a scary ass last name right there, man. But anyway, that's it got me cursing now. So excuse my friend. But this guy just served 1 year of his 6-year sentence. First of all, he gets 6 years for killing an African, and only spent 1 year for killing 26-year-old Cameron Lamb. He was the first white cop convicted of killing a black man in the state of Missouri. Has been set free after serving a little over a year behind bars. On Friday, Governor Parson commuted the 6-year sentence. Former Kansas City officer Eric the lyncher received after being convicted in the December 3rd, 2019 fatal shooting of Cameron Lamb. Right. That's enough of the story right there. We don't even have to read anymore. The fact that the governor, the right thing to do is to commute the sentence of this officer who murdered black man. It's a contradiction in itself. Could any of us been pardoned for that murder of this man if we was behind bars? Because he was working in service for the state, though, in the service of colonialism and white power. This is the reason. That's the connection. That's the relevancy right there. That's the reason why he was pardoned. And I mean, let's get to it. I mean, there's never been a police officer convicted of a murder of a black man. We're talking about in a country, right? A country that enslaved Africans, black codes and Jim Crow. After the Civil War ended, chattel was abolished. You had Jim Crow and black codes, and de facto and de jure discrimination taking place in this country. Can't tell me that this is the first police officer who unjustly murdered a black man or a woman, right? But even in this conviction, they still couldn't see themselves to give the brother Cameron. I mean, the guy got 6 years. Why 20, 30 years? Like, what is it? What it was an accident? No, he shot this man in cold blood in and I guess like I'm looking at the store, but it was either on his property or on his girlfriend's property, right? So you come to this person's home and murder him, and they said they planted a gun on him. That was in the story, that a gun was possibly planted. So even just the corruption that's happening, there should have been some more time packed on to the 6 years just for that. So I don't know if you guys have anything to add on to this, but this is sad.
One of the things that this brings up to me is in connection with all of that we're talking about today in terms of the way in which we identify ourselves or see ourselves as African people here within the United States, within the settler colonial project. And it's the quote, my favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes by Kwame Ture. You already know it again.
Top 5, dead or alive.
Exactly. The quote that if the white man wants to lynch me, that's his problem. But if he has the power to lynch me, that's my problem. Right. And so the governor, and this is similar to Trump, right? Trump, when he decided to pardon all the criminals and all his people, and he just did it because why? He has the power to do it. And this governor is doing the same thing because they have the power to move in service of white supremacy. So that whatever, the way that they paint us as the problem, the problem to get rid of, the ability for any white person to kill us, whether they're a police officer or not, like we've recently just seen, and get rewarded for it. Like we recently seen with this Daniel Petty case, who killed I'm remembering the brother, Jordan Neely. So I think when we're looking at all of these things, and when we're talking to ourselves as a people within this United States, these kind of things are a reminder of the power that they have, and the power that we need to be creating, and the way in which we need to question whether or not that this is our true identity, as quote unquote Americans. Because like when we have to say, well, if he was a black person, if he was from the diaspora, this wouldn't be who had done this, he would not be getting this kind of sentence. That tells you something. And I think it's important for us every time we see these kind of things to remind ourselves to keep it on the front of our minds, to say, okay, this is the reason why we're working to build power, because they're going to continue to do what benefits them. And things like this benefits them clearly. This is a signal that killing a black person is beneficial. Just like Daniel Penny, just like this officer who gets to go to prison only and get his sentence commuted when we have political prisoners, our freedom fighters who have fought for us, that we're working to get out of prison, who have served football numbers, right? 51, Jalil Muntakim served 49 years in prison. Veronza Bowers, who just got out of prison, served 51 years. Leonard Peltier, still in prison, over 50 years. So when we think about those things, it's like they're going to continue to do the things that are beneficial to them. And the things that are beneficial to them are not beneficial to us. And so when they do those things, it's less of, it's us recognizing that they're going to move in the way that they need to move. But those of us, especially those of us who are, questioning, oh, am I African? Am I not? Am I this? Am I not? Is what you're doing building power against this? Because you are, because you think of yourself as an American, will that change that situation? No. But if you think of yourself as an African and you think, okay, well, the United States as it stands was built on the enslavement of African people. It marked a step forward for Europeans and a step, forward for their domination of African people. And it's still happening now. So then what does that mean for you, making sure that okay, well, maybe I do need to think more about joining an organization. Maybe I do need to think more about, what I call myself, what I identify with, because they're showing their identity. They're showing, they don't got to say the quiet part out loud. They're doing it through their actions. And we have to say the quiet part out loud because so many of us are so confused.
Yeah, we're still way confused. But it's what you said, like, is what they're doing, what's good for them is not good for us. That's what people are not understanding. That's what a lot of people don't understand, and that's why so many people are confused as far as that, as far as who we are. And then, but again, it's a lot of years and years of work, propaganda, depoliticizing the masses, you know, uh, there's a lot of work that's been put in by our enemy, and that's still going on. So if we don't, like we said earlier, like we truly have to, everything that we do has to be revolutionary. Everything about us has to be revolutionary. Everything, starting with our culture, how we move, the way we move. So
they convince us that that things are apolitical.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's an important point that you're making.
Yeah.
We don't see things like everything is political.
Exactly. We have to get back to understanding that everything is political, because I know at one point, like right after slavery, for example, right after chattel slavery, our ancestors understood, every move that was being made was important. It was all political. They knew what time it was. They were paying attention, all of that. And at some point, they completely depoliticized our people and told them that, no, you just need to, work hard. This is the system. This is the way shit goes. And politics don't matter. You know what I'm saying? And we kind of, and the masses bought into that. And we gotta get back to being, understanding what's going on, everything around us, and especially today, because today the world is more, it's more of a global, like, truthfully, what happens like in Ghana affects us right now here, and what happens here affects the people all the way in Ghana. You know what I'm saying? We have to, that's today more than ever, right? It's more like the world is super globalized. So we got to get back to that. Everything is political mindset,
Yeah.
And we have to be, everything we do has to be revolutionary, even when we're having fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to have fun. We have to be like, I don't remember, I forget the quote who said it, but like, I don't want a revolution in which I can't dance. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to be doing all that, it's part of our culture, it's part of what we do, but every single thing that we do has to be conscious, even when it's having fun. You know what I'm saying? It has to be conscious, revolutionary. So we gotta get back to that, because if not, then we're too far in. We're far in.
Kwanzaa's got to be, in the words of Akimba, Kwanzaa's got to be revolutionary.
That's right. That's right, Akimba. That's right.
That's what I'm talking about, man.
I want to highlight something for the viewers. This is the same state that Imam Khalifa, also known as Marcellus Williams, was assassinated. This is the same person who denied his right to self-determination, denied his right to humanity, to live, his right to due process, if we're being from a legal perspective, because that's exactly what it was. It was a violation of his due process under these constitutional colonial laws. But I want to dig even further. This man being commuted, and possibly at the same time too given back pay for the sentence being commuted, in some capacity will be able to join a security force that is probably owned by a former police officer. I know that LAPD is real good for that, so watch out for his name in their databases. This also reminds me of soldiers getting rewarded after the Mexican Revolution in certain parts of the areas of which that my indigenous people were from, and places like Vallejo County were named after Spaniards. They were named after Mexican revolutionaries. They were given land plottages and stuff like that, and they became what came with the land came the people, so the people were slaves. And so this is equivalent to that to me. I'm seeing nothing more than contemporary versions of the same things that have happened to our ancestors. Is it people getting rewarded for slaying our people? getting, whether it's a sentence commuted, whether, again, the way I see it is if you killed one of us, then hey, what's the next, what comes to mind for y'all? Because I know what comes to mind for me. I'm a revolutionary. So it's not a, you know, people call it tit for tat. I call it getting even. Okay. And I don't think we have that get even mentality anymore. I don't think we want that get even mentality. And that's what's missing, so much so that we've allowed these neo-colonial puppets, you know, as Dr. Umar would say, you know, these snow bunny loving, you know, Negroes, you know, out here masquerading around like they're Dr. King and whatnot, and they're doing right by their people, and yet they're the ones that have leveraged. Okay, again, we cannot look at the police force and act like it's all white. It ain't. That's that. You guys ever heard the song "Everyday People"? That's you know, that's the way I see it. Is that you could have a mixture of color of nationalities that opt in to neo-colonialism, and we see it all over across the board. So we have to understand that as much as it is a settler colonial thing, it is a neo-colonial thing now, because they have manipulated the minds of people who look just like us, into believing that this commutation, that this deletion of his sentence is rightfully so, that it is rooted in law, that it is rooted in forgiveness, it is rooted in, this is why we live in the land of the free and the home of the brave, you know, free enough to exploit you, you know, brave enough to tell you, you know, that's what this occupation is, and that's what it will always be. We have to also understand too, is that there's a menticide going on. So we got a large group of people who are not omnipresent in what they should be omnipresent in at all.
Yeah,
we are living in a menticide where people literally believe that the white man like that is justifiable, and that is justifiable for release. But the fact that there was sufficient evidence to prove that Marcellus Williams, also known as Imam Khalifa, was innocent, and he wasn't given fair due process. And Parsons is the same person who denied and also slapped figuratively in the face every single person with some baby powder. The 1.1 million people plus that signed and sent in emails, and then turning off the phones, turning off the email servers so they wouldn't see the emails. This is a prime example to show you we cannot operate with the system. We cannot play fair with the system, because the system is not built to play fair. Okay, this is a game of whack-a-mole that we do not win by whacking the mole. We break the fucking game. Okay, we don't play the fucking game. How about that? Excuse my French, but it just, seeing people really believe that this is this is something that's justifiable. It sickens me. It sickens me, and it just adds on. You know, it's like a person who has 2 months worth of backlog paperwork that they need to file, and it's just one person coming up with a big old stack, just like, here you go. You know, this is a bunch of stuff we need to clear up before the liberation comes. You know, before we can even talk about liberation from an organized perspective, where we have a vanguard, where we have a group of people that aren't exploiting, you know, the African masses, and ain't out here pretending, you know, like they need fucking money, but yet they got tenure at fucking colleges and shit, you know?
He going in.
So
going in.
You know, I don't think, you know, again, it goes back to what I say on and I'll continue to say it. Individuals aren't serious, you know, and there's a lot of work to be done. Because for people to justify that, goes back to what Ikemba was saying. We should have been caring about making sure that this man stayed in prison by any means necessary. Malcolm X meant that. Let me stop cussing, okay? Meant that, okay? He meant that by any means necessary, which means be creative, okay? That also doesn't mean work within the parameters of this colonial constitutional, unconstitutional system. Because if we're to be constitutional, there has to be a society based there. And for society to be based, it has to be civil, because that's one of the root words of society. This is nothing civil. This is an occupation. And we live under menticide. And so I'll land my plane there and getting, you know, but I just want people to understand.
No, that's real rap, though.
The contemporary versions of the same stuff that we have seen time and time and time again.
Yeah.
Yo, if I could just add briefly, because you had said something in regards to being a revolutionary and how we should respond. It just took me to a Malcolm X, took me back to a Malcolm X interview, which I've been having trouble locating lately. So I have
There's
to
a lot of
find this.
videos
And
from Malcolm. There's a lot of videos from Malcolm that I think they're erasing from
they're
the internet.
erasing them. Yeah, because
they're
this
erasing
been
that
difficult.
or we also have to understand too. There might be people that look like us that are in academia, but they're not on our side at all.
No,
and so
for
what
sure.
they will do is they will find and grab as much material as they possibly can and gatekeep it so that they can make money off of it. And that's not what this network will ever be about, which is why you see these videos, these breaks for Black Powers, because that's education. Dr. Amos Wilson would want us to be playing.
We need that. Yeah,
Malcolm X would want us to be playing this. If they were
Most
hearing
definitely.
contemporary papers, they'd want those words to be out there. Again,
if I had this video on deck, it would have been a good opportunity to play it too. But the reason I'm bringing it up because you talked about the response, and of course, like, be on this platform. There's a way. There's just certain things, you just don't want to put out there on a platform or say in a platform for various reasons. But I remember, like, Malcolm X, he was being interviewed, and they were having that conversation about Malcolm being violent, and because Malcolm was talking about defending ourselves if someone attacks us, to go out there and respond to that. And like the Ku Klux Klan, he was referring to the Ku Klux Klan. He would snakes as an analogy. The guy asked the question, and he said, if a snake came to my home and bit my daughter, he said, when I go out there, I'm not going to look for the that bit my daughter. He said, the snake I see is going to get it, right? And so, the guy, he was like, well, how can you say it? He's like, how can you just go out there and indiscriminately, attack white people? And Malcolm was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, I'm talking about snakes. I was like, this dude, you got to be sharp like that, though, man. You had me up here talking about indiscriminately going out there,
right.
I don't know which.
I'm talking about snakes.
I'm talking about snakes.
And I think it's it's all about the nuance of it all in terms of thinking about the way in which the multiple ways in which we're oppressed and attacked. That's also very nuanced, because when we're talking about all this, right, the menticide, that is being done on multiple levels in multiple ways. And so in the same way, when we're thinking about responding, there's a lot of nuance to that. It could be done in multiple ways, in various ways.
No, you're right.
Black power.
Hey, listen,
is it time for a break?
Let me just say real quick, Isaac, man, I appreciate you bringing up, Imam Khalifa, because I think it's so much tragedy, man, that goes on to us and our people. Like when we talk about that, when we could think about what's going on in Sudan, everything. But like, I remember when they murdered him, and y'all was live, on this network right here, and like we forget quickly because, like I said, there's so much tragedy, and I'm guilty of that too. Just forgetting quickly about these things, man. But this is not a joke, man. This is real life. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we're going through, man. And the mental side and everything. But like you said, another spot another thing that you spoke on, Isaac, where it's like, we're another area in which our people are lost sometimes. It's like, black faces doing the work of white hegemony, and us not seeing it, us being lost because it's black faces. You know what I'm saying? That's where a lot of that's where we lost a lot of our people, when they started understanding, when they started using that tactic, really, when they started doing that work. Because if you go back far enough, that wasn't being done. It was all, all the cops were white, everybody was white. And at some point they understood, oh, hold on, we could get these people to do our work, you know what I'm saying? And, make some of these people fall asleep and think that, you know, they're not doing this work, but they're doing the work of white hegemony.
Dig a little deeper though, because I think that it was a calculated move to then in part evade from them getting the full responsibility and held accountable, full accountability for what they have done. Is that now they have black
100%.
faces in high places. Yep. You have all these generals,
like we're all doing this,
that are from the African diaspora, and what they'll do is they'll say, well, we're going to blame it on you. So now, since again, what they've done is they have created through this manipulation, the menticide, into getting individuals into believing neo-colonial aesthetics and not really understanding the full repercussions of what that entails after the math. Is that now individuals who look like us have to be held accountable for doing things against their own people.
And it works both ways too, because you see now people in the motherland and in other places, and they're like, nah, look who's doing this.
Exactly.
You know I'm saying, look who's doing it. It's not the Americans.
Do you think that the Burkina Faso is not going to point out that the generals they've been packing up, that they'll soon be packing up when the West, you know, makes its way over there, since France has been, you know, ousted out of the Sahel states? You know, do you think that they're going to not point out the fact that what they know neo-colonialism, again, people here in the West need to stop acting like Africans abroad are dumb. They are not dumb. They are the most highly intellectual individuals, and they know neo-colonialism like no other. They could spot that shit a mile away. Okay? We are living in a society where we continue to fall for the traps of causing harm to our own people by claiming and thinking unconsciously that the Africans abroad, our African brothers and sisters abroad, do not know what neo-colonialism is and don't know what neo-colonialism is, and how they won't point that out. And they will point the finger. They are pointing the finger. They know exactly who's at the helm of all of this. You know, who's the grand maestro of it all. You know, do you think some of these corporations that bought in to getting Agent Orange reelected for a second term were people from our diaspora as well? This is a neo-colonial bipartisan project that is rooted in democratic fascism and is a duopoly of fascism that works in reciprocity to keep imperialism afloat. It's not that it's not hard to understand, because it's very hard to understand, because we have people that are not involved the way that we are, you know. But for an individual like myself, it's very hard to decipher. Very, very hard. You know, and shit, if I was blind, I'd read it in Braille and still be able to understand it. You know,
right.
So,
nah, I feel you, man.
Yeah, no. Do y'all want to go on a break or what?
you should, how about we let the people know that they tuned into the Rise Up Morning Show on Black Power Media Reloaded.
Shout out to everybody out there checking us out, man. We appreciate it.
We're sitting on the couch.
Below
in the living room having this conversation.
Below is a ticker to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/Black Power Media Reloaded. Right. The way that we build this up is through the people, and the people being able to believe in us. If you believe in us enough to watch us for an hour and a half, and you have the means, the financial means to be able to help us, you know, as Malcolm X would say, by any means necessary, go to that link, please.
And it don't have to be a lot of means, just a little bit of means.
Exactly. You know,
these are freedom dollars. Marco said that.
This will get us into this will get us into, say, for example, into courtrooms to be able to truthfully give you an analysis on what's going on things that affect our diaspora. This helps us go to and meet up with other organizations or connect with organizations that we are all together connected with as well, and making sure that we make that connectivity. So it all helps and it all betters the community. So I just want to say, you know, please, you know, do so. Help the brothers and sisters out over here at Black Power Media Reloaded. It is very, very much appreciated. A lot of work is being done. A lot of things are being in the works. I just showed the comrades the logo for the new show Decolonizing Media, which is going to be airing in January, which it'll be it'll be starring me and having guests bi-weekly. And so I've already the two guests that will be on have already been listed, and that's Matt Kennard from Declassified UK, and also Laeth Maroof from Free Palestine TV, which you can support at freepalestinetv.video. It's a great source. They really show you what's going on in West Asia. And so individuals like such will be on and will be decolonizing media in a way that that I think, people will enjoy. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on. I know Fernando is always, cooking up episodes. I'm wondering when we charge colonialism is going to make its way to Black Power Media.
It's coming.
It's coming, y'all. Okay.
We cooking up something.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's
There
cooking
we
up
go.
right now. I know that comrade Buna and you just started a new show with Dr. Joel Horn. So again, there's a lot of things that are happening here on Black Power Media Reloaded.
Yeah, I hear they got Dr. Horn on the payroll, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, hey, stop joking around. Come on, man. Hold on, y'all serious?
No, he's kidding.
We're definitely kidding. We're definitely kidding.
Kimba's like, that's my salary right
He's
there.
just like, what? Is he on payroll? I want to be on payroll.
Kimba said, y'all gonna stop treating me like Tito Jackson.
Hey, we've been here since day one, man. Like, come on now.
No,
Bruh.
it's a real joke. It's a real joke. He is
Yeah.
All right.
Shout out to
I
the
also
comrades, man.
I
I see
also wanna
my
highlight-
comrade Malika over there rocking with y'all. I see that, and the comrade Buna. That's what's up, man. Shout out to Dr. Horn as well. Amandla, great show. That's gonna be definitely a monthly show.
Yep, every fourth Monday at 8 a.m.
Yeah, no doubt. Make sure y'all tune
Yes,
in
I
for that one.
2025 gonna be rocking, man.
It's gonna be rocking. We even getting back. I'm even getting back in the booth, man. So Ikemba, I'm gonna have to hit you up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yo, I'm writing tonight.
So does that
Okay.
does that mean
Okay.
we're getting a new? Are we getting a new intro music? Is that?
Hey,
is
listen.
That what's
listen.
going on?
We're working.
Can I get on the
We're
intro?
working. We're working, man.
Can I write a little poem to go onto the track?
Oh.
That's the problem with music. Soon as you start, everybody's a musician. Soon as you start
Right.
talking about it.
No, I'm
I
not
can
a
sing, I can sing, right? Like
I can't sing. Enough.
I can hold a note.
All I can
Nah,
do
I'm
is
playing.
write a
I'm
poem
playing.
and read it. That's it.
But yeah, definitely
Hey.
working on some things for sure.
Sure, man. Yeah, I'm ready for it, man.
Yeah.
I'm been waiting for decades for my opportunities just to get some bars, man. Every time I ask
Patiently
somebody,
waiting, huh?
I've been asking artists for, I feel like the artists back in the day that be trying to get on, they come with their mixtape and everything. Like I've been feeling like that for 2 decades, man.
I think we're gonna play your joint for the next break for Black Power, man. Because I don't think people know, man. Your spoken word.
They be sleeping on me,
They
man. I don't
sleeping
think
on
that
you.
was. I don't think that was clean enough, though.
What it is
Nah.
like, you don't be having it ready.
Yeah,
You like,
that's
I
it.
gotta look for it. Give me 20
Yeah,
minutes. Give me an hour.
good one. I gotta be ready. I got it, man. I'm gonna make sure I'm always prepared, just in case. You never
That's
know.
right. Be ready. So we jump into a Black Power break, and then we
Yes,
come back with some more stories.
yes.
Power.
We're gonna be coming back with Sudan, and then we can wrap up with some Amazon workers news and whatnot as well. So stay tuned, you guys. Until then, enjoy some words from Dr. Amos Wilson, which was brought up in this conversation today on a multitude of occasions. And so this is just, again, building on that Black Power that he built up on. So enjoy this break for Black Power.
Rise up.
There's only one serious leadership structure available for African people. And that's the leadership struggle provided by African nationalism. It's the only way to go. There's no other way around. You must understand, but see, some people have deceived you about nationalism. What nationalism is and what it isn't. Some people have told you that nationalism means race hatred. That it means, one race being superior to another race. It's the same kind of joke that they tried to tell you about Afrocentrism being the mirror image of what? Eurocentrism. It's a joke. It's not true. Understand what nationalism is. Nationalism is an ideology of 1,000 faces. While we may have a similar sense of what it is, it involves no one definition that can be agreed on. No two types of nationalism are the same, ladies and gentlemen. And we have to recognize that. Nationalism is very important. Nationalism, allied with the sense of nation, offers unity and mutual support, solidarity and identity, structure and cohesion to people who otherwise may feel atomized, insecure, vulnerable, and bereft of stabilizing norms, values, and affirmative social relations. Through nationness and nationalism, the individual transcends his existential aloneness and shares in the much broader virtues and power of the group. His power and that of the group to which he belongs are one. And let us look at nationalism. Nationalism creates focused power which enables the people to achieve ends, which is separate individuals pursuing their own unrelated self-interested ends they could never achieve. The power generated by nationalism is the bane and harbinger of destruction for those who wish to establish or maintain imperial control over other people. What are we saying here then? That some nations may use nationalism as a means of unifying themselves, of creating self-determination, and after doing so, to fill themselves with an ideology of racial superiority and an ideology of manifest destiny, and using their nationalism combined with the sense of manifest destiny and racial superiority, enslave other people and colonize other people. And this is the essence of European nationalism. But the essence of African nationalism is a different type and of a different kind. And we have to understand that clearly before someone confuses us. Black or African nationalism is a nationalism of liberation and self-determination, not of conquest and domination. It is premised on the precept that blacks and African people shall not be the subjects of another people, nor should they subject themselves to other people. That black peoples and nations should exercise the full rights to develop and utilize their material, human, and spiritual resources primarily for their own benefit and well-being, and for the benefit and well-being of others as they see fit. That they are not the inferiors of others and not destined by God or man to exist in the forced servitude of others. And when and if and for whatever and however long they may be willfully subjected to the domination of others, they are commissioned and they are obligated by their inalienable rights as human beings to freedom to resist such domination and overthrow it as soon as humanly possible. So when we talk about an African nationalism, we are not talking about a nationalism of racial superiority, a nationalism where we intend to conquer and rule and enslave another people. An African nationalism is needed to liberate us from the nationalism of others. Nationalism evokes a sense of cohesion and belonging in a people that permits them to cooperate and to coordinate their activities and to align themselves in order to achieve their national.
I feel like, man, we should now. I feel like I want to just go read Amos Wilson. Like, I feel like we got to play that back again. Like, let the whole thing keep going.
That's what it'll do.
That man is vicious, man.
Yeah.
But, hey, I'm the uprisers are going to come at me. Natasha, you're going to come at me. But what he's talking about is like it's nation. He's talking about the nation, but that is a form of racism right there, man.
No, it's not.
What?
What?
He's putting He's putting the race. He's putting the race
No.
first. He's race first. So race first politics.
Race first ideology is racism.
See, y'all think racism has to just be like a negative. I'm not talking about like black supremacy, like white supremacy. White, you can still practice racism with having the ideology supremacy. When you race for, like, I agree with a lot of things Dr. Claude and this, but I agree with them on this point, man. Like this go ahead.
So you don't agree that you don't understand racism as something that's based on power, and that there's no such thing as reverse racism, and like we can't be racist in a system where we don't have
I'm not
power.
saying like reverse racism, the argument that will come with when you're fighting to integrate into the system and have equal rights and trying to address the harms of African people, and they try to come with racism. I'm not talking about that. That's something I'm talking about when black people are building institutions, black people exclusive of other groups of people, right? And if they're basing it off of race, because I mean, just to be clear, like I don't like that's a race is a construct. I don't think that me personally, I don't think that that race is a real thing. But the idea of race has consequences, right? There's implications to people who believe that. So first of all, so when I speak of Africans, I'm speaking of African people as a nation, not necessarily like some biological thing, right? So just to be clear, but just the idea of race, when people go with that, Garvey, he talked about like Garvey, what he was doing, race first. That's a form of race. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not. I'm not saying that he's doing this to oppress other groups of people. He's putting the race first, and everything that they're building institutions is for the race. Is at the exclusion of other quote unquote races of people. How can you not say that that's racism?
Okay, so no, absolutely not. So anyway,
the uprising is probably killing me right
man,
now.
I'm not following you, Campbell, man.
You're not following.
Go ahead, cook it, Natasha.
You're not.
Go ahead. What you got, Natasha?
Not true. And if I wasn't sitting here, I go up and go get my Neely Fuller book so I can, give you the definition of racism. But I'll give you this. I can give you a quick online definition one of racism from Neely Fuller. But because in the compensatory code, because when you talk about racism, right, that it's a system and that there's only one system that exists, and so therefore you building up the race is not racism. You're not creating a system of oppression. What you're doing is you're building up your people. So like, even if you were to like just a general definition of the way in which Neely Fuller defines it, is like a large scale hierarchical system of racial oppression devised and maintained by whites to conquer, suppress, and control non-whites. That is the system of racism. So if black people are building their own institutions for themselves, by themselves, it is not conceived, right, as a hierarchical system of racial oppression so that they can maintain and conquer and suppress other non-black people. That's not what we're doing when we're talking about.
We're not doing that for black domination.
Let me ask one question. I know we got a story. I don't want to belabor this point, but let me just ask you this question. So you got a school for African children, and there is a white family that lives in that community, and they want to send their children to this African-centered school. For one, they don't want to send their children to the other schools because they could possibly don't want their children to be socialized in this capitalist, system, and they think that the schools are miseducating them, and they feel that going to school with African children that are fighting against this system would be better off, like getting that information. And so that African school was like, no, you can't, because you're not African, you're not part of this race or nation, you can't come to this school. So now they have to go to the schools that they want to and send their children to the school, send them to where they're going to be educated and so forth. Right? So now their children are being, in a sense, because they could be a part of this liberation movement too. See, that's it. See, it's racism.
Where did you go? No, I'm listening. I'm not even interrupting you. Don't mind the face. I can't help it.
Like, kid gonna have a bit of a tough time, man. Even in an African center school.
But they want to liberate themselves from this colonial capitalist. I'm just, hypothetical. I'm asking you, like, so, but you don't see that as like keeping them from being a part of this movement to dismantle the system. Like, they have to continue to be a part.
The thing about it is,
in the system, we can say that, like, they have that privilege that white people are oppressed and exploited even within their own system. They're dealing with hierarchies, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so
all right.
So they got to go to their people, and they got to deal with that. They're already put into a position of power, to be able to say, okay, well, this is not the kind of school that I want for my child. I want, like you're saying, my child to be liberated from this white supremacist mentality, all this other stuff. So therefore, I'm gonna send them to another school. You are part of the oppressor. You are part of the oppressor group. The what we're doing is to combat. It's an offensive.
But they don't want to be a part of it anymore.
It's a defensive. Sorry. We're being defensive, not offensive. They're being offensive. The issue with, if you have that thing, well, what you need to do is go with the rest of the white people that feel that same way. And you need to go start up a school so that you can liberate your mind from that, right? Get that white money that exists. There's a lot of, white people who will give you the money for that. You think about this kind of schools, they create all kind of schools for themselves. And they were not stripped of their culture. They were not put through enslavement. We're doing this to reclaim ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. So this has
race first
with you. No, it's deeper than race first. It's deeper than race first. It has nothing to do with you in that sense, because it's beyond just getting an education that is not, promoting white supremacy. It's an education to re-Africanize yourself. You're not African. So it's like, if I'm not Jewish, I'm not going to try to go to do a Jewish day school. Yes, I know that is religion, but we're talking about culture, right? When they're talking about their day schools, they do it not just for, their particular religion, but they're thinking about their culture in general. Nobody just go up and say, oh, well, I want to be part of a Jewish day school because, they're not about this, teaching all this nonsense. It doesn't happen. And that this is a false idea, a false equivalency, like he was talking about.
He spoke about it.
False equivalency, just like when they me and Akimba were having the same kind of back and forth the other day, this false equivalency of discrimination. The word discrimination is not inherently of it in itself a bad term. To discriminate just means to discern. We discern all the time, and because it's part of how you ensure that you stay alive. Anything within any living thing within the earth, it discerns from any type of animal or plant. It has discernment, and you make decisions based off of your discernment, because it's even tied into your body. It's the way in which you communicate with the whole of the universe. Like, that's tied into it. It's something that you already innately have. And obviously we know, like, our senses have been dulled in terms of us being able to really listen to our intuition and our gut. And we've been told so many things to make us question our own mental sanity and sense that we can make. And so therefore we don't do it as much, but everyone has that. And so when we're talking about, when they try to say, like, oh, if you do this for yourself, oh, that's discrimination, that's reverse discrimination, that's reverse racism. No. That's another mind game. And race, it's not being racist at all to build for yourself. You are in a war that is not that is not equal.
Yeah.
You are being attacked from one side. You don't even, a lot of you don't even know you're at war, and so like you're not even fighting back in that kind of way. You've been at war since you know, they went and kidnapped Africans from the continent, and that was it, you know, and then you came here and they never said the war was over. When they started war with you, they never said the war was over. So like what we're doing is absolutely not in any sense, not even a little bit, not a tiny drop, not a crumb, not a microscopic crumb racist, okay, in relation to
Black power.
So hold on. Wait, hold on, man.
Exactly.
Hold on. So Ikemba, this is interesting, man. So you don't subscribe to the ideology of to the ideology of race first?
First, the nation first. I don't subscribe to race, the idea of race, but African people first, for sure.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. People first.
Well, like African, you said, race is a construct, but it is a construct that
I'm with Garvey. I'm with Malcolm. Don't get me wrong with what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm just like, I just don't see the consistency, and you know, just the definition and the history and who can be like. I think that there's levels to it. You know, like white power is on a whole nother, like the way that they can you know, first and have an impact, and then the ideas of white supremacy, you know, it's going to have different impact on society and on African people and our people than the other way around. But I think that African people can exercise, you know, racism. In America, it's going to be difficult. In places where Black people represent a minority, will be difficult, but Black people can create institutions. They can lock folks out. Like my thing is this: like in America, this is why it's so difficult to fight against, you know, racism in America, is because it's not like it was during the Jim Crow, you know, era, during apartheid, where you would have like laws on the books. You know, you had black codes, you had Jim Crow, all of these things in place that was clearly for Black people, to keep Black people from doing certain things, right? Going to school, to vote, and so forth. Like it's difficult for you to say that you can like point to some laws on the books that is for one set of people and not another, you know, a group of people. Now the people who are, because you read the institution from the people, like there's people who are in places that have racist ideology that can like make the decisions, hire someone or not, you know, those sort of things take place. But when you live in like Philadelphia and we have a Black woman mayor and we got Black city council, people who are neo-colonialists, yes, you know, they're in service of white power, right? Yeah. But they're able to get in those positions. Nothing about their skin color that is preventing them getting those positions or owning a company and so forth. So colonialism is preventing Black people to do a lot of things because the resources that we have, like the access to certain resources, that makes it difficult for us to compete. This is why Umoja is so important, because, you know, we in our silos trying to fight against this machine. It's not working, but it is definitely the combination of the two, though. Yeah.
But white hegemony is a global system, man. So I don't understand how a black person can be, you know, actively.
I mean, look at
racism.
Look
any place
Nigeria
on earth, really. Like,
look at what Nigeria is doing. Look at what Burkina Faso and Mali is doing. Right, they kicked the French right up out here. Like, go ahead, Chad. To take your troops, and you ask them why they did it. Like, you know, the story with Chad. Like it's time for us to exercise true sovereignty, right? I mean, let's story.
Let's go to the next story. We can
we're gonna have to get back to this one though, because
we'll have to make this a whole episode within itself.
Right. Let's do that.
So we're gonna bring up the next story that is about the Sudan. So the story that I wanted to highlight today was how Sudan withdraws hunger monitoring systems ahead of famine. And so I'll just pull it up really quickly for the people as I go through it really quickly so that we can make sure we can all do this together. There we go. So it says Sudan withdraws from hunger monitoring system ahead of report on famine. And specifically, Sudan has dropped out of the global hunger monitoring system just as it is about to issue a report that is expected to show famine spreading across the country. So what's interesting about this article is that it tells you that this organization called the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification System, organization is the one that does these surveys that shows famine in different areas. And so the survey that's going to be published is supposed to show that famine is affecting 5 areas. And so, and showing that also like it could expand by May. But in particular, they say that this marks an unprecedented deepening and widening of the food and nutrition crisis driven by the devastating conflict and poor humanitarian access. So as we know, Sudan is currently, as is stated, experiencing the worst humanitarian crisis currently going on right now in our time. And so Sudan said that, and Sudan authorities accuse the IPC of bias, and that Sudan said that it's withdrawing from the IPC system because the IPC is issuing unreliable reports that undermine Sudan's sovereignty and dignity, which the agriculture minister said in a letter. And just a little information, the IPC is an independent body funded by Western nations and overseen by 19 large humanitarian organizations and intergovernmental institutions, and is designed to sound the alarm about food crises so organizations can respond and prevent famine and mass starvation. Further on, it goes down here to say that in the IPC has faced challenges elsewhere. So authorities in Myanmar and Yemen also were blocking them or for falsifying data or suppressing its findings, according to Reuters. And in Ethiopia, after the government disliked a 2021 IPC finding that 350,000 people were experiencing catastrophic food insecurity, it stopped working with the IPC. So I think this is interesting that you have this organization that goes around and kind of determines and uses data to try and say what's happening in terms of food and famine within these different countries. And that, at the time with all the stuff that's going on in Sudan, that they're deciding to leave, being part of this organization. And that they say that specifically that their rulings are unreliable and that it undermines their sovereignty and dignity, and the fact that, this is funded by Western nations is also.
Yeah, I was going to ask, where are they based at? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know in particular. I mean, I can, quickly look and see. I didn't even, because the fact that
they're funded by the West, though.
Right. And because the way we know that these non-governmental organizations work is that they might be created in one country, but they're all over the place, right?
Yeah,
because that's how they get the money and how the funding works and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this article is interesting, especially in light of the fact of what is going on in Sudan, but also thinking about the way in which they say that their findings undermine its sovereignty, and the way other countries have also said, you know what, no, whatever they're saying here, we're not going to go with that. And so it's about it makes me think about data and reports And how do those, what does that data and reporting that these different organizations that are pointed to as organizations that are supposed to be helpful for these countries, what does it do? Does it bring in unwanted access in a way? Is it used to justify challenging or just completely disregarding a country's sovereignty?
I don't know, like you just said something. I was thinking about something else in a way where and I might have missed something in the story, because when you were talking about undermining the sovereignty, I was wondering is a way that they are doing that is by contradicting what the state, the data and the information that the state is putting out in regards to what's going on in their country. And also, also just defining the situation in the country too, being able to collect data and when they're able to define, like, what is a genocide, what is a humanitarian crisis, right? And they're them being able to dictate that, an outside force coming in and saying, well, you don't meet the threshold of a genocide or being in a humanitarian crisis and needing these resources, right? And so, that could undermine the sovereignty in the sense where now, what's happening within the borders of a country, how the world is viewing that is not necessarily dependent on what the leaders of the country say. It's on this report that is put out by a non-state actor, and there's things as far as like they can argue this is done in the to make sure that the report is or the reporters are objective, that they don't have a special interest. So there's ways that they can sort of like twist the story. But I don't know. That's just something that came to mind as far as just undermining the sovereignty. I could have missed some other things, but I think Natasha made another point at as far as the last statement she had made.
Yeah, Natasha made a good point too. I unite with what y'all saying. I don't know where Natasha went. They both those dudes left us, man.
Oh, she I don't know. Her phone might have
they dipped out on us.
She bounced. She probably coming back in.
Yeah, she has to be.
But yeah. No, this is an important story, man. It's all, the West, again, just going back to just defining situations. This has always been the problem. These colonizers have been able to define our suffering, and what we need to address suffering. And it's always the blame is always shifted, or the cause of it is always shifted from the colonizer to the colonized, to the oppressed, to the exploited.
Absolutely.
Right. And they end up being the ones that come in and trying to address the problems that they had created in the first place. But them being able to define, because genocide ain't come around till until it happened to another group of things in Europe, but who have been to a Holocaust for 500 to 600 years, but it has never been called that. Our experience of slavery, of genocide, of colonialism, that was never defined as a genocide. It was never a Holocaust. Now they have a word for it, but now we don't go back and still we have to define it. We call it the Mayafa.
The Mayafa.
Or the what's the other word? Mayangamizi, I think is the other term.
No, I'm just familiar with Mahafa,
Yeah. But we define it as that. The European want us to forget that it even happened, because that opens up a can of worms, man.
Yeah. And have us, have our identity begin, within that period, and us to completely forget what happened before, and things like that. But no, you're right, man. And this again goes back to self-determination. Word of the day.
Kuji Leah.
That's
Let's
right.
go.
Being able to understand things from our perspective, from our perspective, redefining things, from our perspective.
I'm back, y'all. Sorry,
sure.
my phone.
That's the key.
Hey, Karibu. We in our Kiswahili bag today.
Word.
But nah. Before we wrap though, is there anything that we need to let the people know? We did the promo the other. I don't know. We got on the promo. Go check that out.
You have to let them know about more promo. We have to let them know again about what's happening this weekend.
Kwanzaa events, man. Go calendar. Go check it. Eventbrite, Facebook, social media.
And check back to our episode on the 24th.
Yeah, because we put a bunch out, and that was like New York, Philly based stuff too.
Yeah.
So but involve yourself
in France, Fernando, that you want to let the people know real quick.
And practice at home too,
Right now, practice at home. That's what I'm doing right now, and as far as events, we got some things coming up, but in a couple months. We don't have anything right now as far as our organization. We'll have definitely a few things coming up in March. Later on during the year. Hopefully we get a Kemba out here soon. Come through and
let's do that, man.
Yeah. And vice versa.
Yeah. No doubt. Let's make it happen. We gotta connect.
For sure, man.
You're tuned into the Rise Up Morning Show. Thank y'all for being here with us today, and rocking out. Make sure you celebrate Kwanzaa. If you celebrate Kwanzaa, do it at home and also do it with the community at large. Make it revolutionary. And we'll see you next time.
Black power, y'all.
Hey, Black power.
Rise up.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one. Well, the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares until they frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and a stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces winners on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Well, my inner me really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven, like heaven's only in the sky. A chariot's a swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my enemy is really a mirror for the galaxy.